Hey, welcome back to the channel. I finally put a lift kit on my Cherokee. As you can see, she sits a little higher, and I thought I'd do a video about it. I know there are a pile of how-tos and step-by-step instructionals on putting lift kits on Jeeps, and there's so many different kits you can get and different ways to do different things. So I thought rather than doing another one of those, I'm just going to show you what I did, briefly talk about anything I might have run into here and there. Hopefully that'll be helpful to you when you go to do your lift kit. You can go watch some of those other how-tos and step-by-steps, because there's great ones out there. Maybe something in this will be helpful to you. Alright? Before we get too carried away though, it's motherfucking Dr. Pepper time. So since this is all just kind of tips and tricks or whatever, I thought I'd start out by just showing you what I used as far as jacks go. Most people have a jack and jack stand. So when I was younger, I got this little 3-piece set, came with 2 of these, this guy, and I think I paid like $100 or something for it. I don't know what they go for now, but it's a good starter. If you want to get into working on your own cars, you definitely need a good set of jack stands, and a good floor jack is handy because those ones like your car comes with are just junk. However, once you invest in a Cherokee, you're going to find that a jack like this and these jack stands are not really tall enough for this vehicle. Even stock, it sits up quite a bit higher than most other cars. So these are great to have still, but this is the jack stand I recommend you get. Something much bigger, something with a much wider, top on it like this. This is perfect because this will actually sit under your frame rails here if you want. Because for a project like this, you need to drop the axle, so you have to support the structure of the vehicle somehow. And it's just good peace of mind to have something like this underneath. As far as a jack, I recommend getting something like this, a larger size. I can't remember how high it goes up. Oh, it says right here. So this thing will go up over 16 inches, which is more than adequate for what you need. So to start off, I jacked up the rear end. I supported the vehicle on these crappy frame rails that the Cherokee has. It's a unibody, but those are strong enough for you to gently rest it on there for a while and not have to worry about screwing anything up. Then you can allow the axle to hang. You need to get this thing way up in the air for this axle to hang down far enough for you to put in some lifted springs. Disassembly is pretty straightforward. You're just taking off everything. You're going to want to start by, I found anyway, taking the axle off of the springs first, which is done by taking your U-bolts off. And this plate looks a little different than yours, I'll tell you why in a bit. But yeah, you just take off these 4 nuts, and then this plate will come free. And that is what holds your axle onto your spring. So I had my small jack under here supporting this, so I could raise it and, let it down gently. After those are off, you're going to want to take out the eye bolts in your spring. I kept the factory shackles for now, so I didn't even take off these bolts up here. These were a real pain in the butt to get out. I ended up cutting mine off just with a zip disc very carefully, and I was able to get an air hammer with a little chisel in there and spread these guys just far enough that I could pop the spring off. Not the prettiest, but it didn't screw anything up. Make sure you get some good grade 8 bolts or better when you replace them, because you don't want to mess around. There's a lot of forces being active on this. Get a good one. Put some anti-seize on it too. Look, I put so much anti-seize on there. What a mess. Obviously do your lower shock here. That's just this nut, easy as can be, and 2 bolts up there for the top of the shock. Now the other thing you're going to run into is when you go to drop your axle to put your new springs in, you're going to find that your brake line is not long enough. At least mine wasn't. I don't know how guys get away with doing any lift at all with those brake lines. They're so friggin' short. I was stretching it, like it would have popped if I tried to drive with these springs on. So I picked up a set of Rugged Ridge brake lines, extended brake lines, stainless steel, and for the reviews online were really good on these. I haven't had a problem, no leaks, nothing failed. They went on nice and easy. It was a good kit, and I strongly recommend it. Rugged Ridge, good stuff. This front eye bolt on your leaf spring is notorious for doing all kinds of horrible things, whether it's breaking off or the nut inside the frame rail breaking free and spinning, so you can't get these things out. I was very lucky. Mine came out okay, It was a real tough pull, but nothing broke, and I was even able to reuse my original bolts. Ideally, you want to replace hardware like this, but this is a real hassle to find. Even the fastener shops scratch their heads a little, and they have stuff that's close, but nothing quite right. So try to save these ones. If it fucking breaks inside, and that bolt's free, and you gotta cut this frame open, then just use whatever you want, obviously. I think Cherokee Ronnie had a really good video on how to get to that nut from the top inside. You just have to peel back the carpet in the interior there a little bit. I think it's even under the seat, so you wouldn't even see it. Yeah. And anyway, you can get down from the top and get at that nut. So that way you don't have to cut apart any of this stuff. I kind of think that's probably the way to go. It's what I would have done if I had to, but I got lucky. I also decided to eliminate the sway bar back here, which would normally have a little bracket that sits on here and then come out, because the rear sway bar doesn't do all that much on this thing, and I honestly don't notice it not being there. I also replaced the plates back here. I made some new ones on my plasma table at work because I bought thicker U-bolts. These are 9/16ths, which are thicker than the ones that come on the Cherokee. The bolt plate needed bigger holes, and rather than just die grind them out, it was easier for me to just make a new plate, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It was made out of like, I think it's 3/8 thick, 10 mil. Should be good enough. It doesn't look like it's deflecting or anything. So if you go and get bigger U-bolts than you're supposed to, like an idiot like me, get ready to die grind your old plate or to make a new one. I'm trying to think if anything else went sideways back here. Really, the biggest was just fighting with those rear shackle bolts was a real hassle. And when you go to put your lifted springs on, you might have to do some creative leveraging to get your axle down far enough to get them in. I also ran into the issue that my springs were so arched that they didn't actually reach the shackle, and I had to kind of mess around with blocks of wood and things and lifting up the rear end to kind of stretch it out and get it into place. It was a real hassle, but I got it in there. Now, after I did my rear end, I went and took it for a test drive, and I had some really serious vibration issues. So I took it back home, and I did a bunch of reading on the internet, and I found that because my leaf springs came with these shims, you can see them, they changed the angle of my differential, which isn't so bad if you get a slip yoke eliminator kit for out there. But I'm not a rich man, so that wasn't something I was about to invest in. Now the only way I can fix that then is to adjust the angle of the transfer case to match the angle of my diff. So to do that, I went to work and I fabbed up these spacers for my transfer case cross member here. Now these are exactly 1 inch thick, and they're basically it's just a bar with 2 holes in it. You can make one yourself by hand or out of rubber. I even considered using hockey pucks. When you put any size spacer in here, you're going to need to replace the factory bolts because they are not long enough to accommodate anything other than this. But they're pretty easy to track down. I got these ones at Lowe's. Yeah, and while I was, solving vibration issues, I thought it would be smart to change my U-joints while I was at it. So I did, got a strap kit. Whenever you do your U-joints, you may as well replace these straps. One day I'm going to get like a strap eliminator. It's just a U-bolt that goes through and bolts back here. I just didn't feel like tracking one down that day. This is what I had available to me, so you piss with the cock you got, right? I got some nice Rancho shocks I put on. I'm very happy with those. They're the RS 5000 series, I think, and they, what can you say about them? They seem pretty good. The springs that I put on here, by the way, they're Pro Comp, and they're supposed to be a 3.5 inch lifted spring, but I've seen this part number for these advertised as 2.5 to 4.5, so I don't know. Don't be surprised if you don't get what you think you're going to get. Alright, so once I got the spacer in and my vibration issues were sorted out, I felt confident to move on to the front. On the front here, once again, I got myself the new brake line, same kit, that Rugged Ridge kit, and again, there was no way I could have put this lift on and used the factory brake lines. They were so short. The front went pretty straightforward, just a lot of fighting to get the axle down far enough. One thing you're going to have to do, if you don't plan on replacing your control arms and are taking them off anyway, you're still going to have to undo them, either this end or this end, because your axle won't drop down far enough because of this plate here. See, when it drops, it interferes with it and it just stops it. So you have to unbolt this control arm. I imagine this really interferes with the amount of flex you get up front here after it's lifted. So, because I mean, look at that, there's such a small gap. So if this axle drops, it's gonna hit that. That's not good. So I've got some control arms I'm gonna put on in the very near future. And this fastener actually came out okay. I didn't have any trouble with it. I was kind of surprised. I thought it would be a tough one. Again, your shocks, Ranchos, same thing, RS5000s. These springs I got from Clyde, from the Paps Boys Roadhouse. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that. And it was awfully generous of him to give me these. And yeah, they've been pretty good. They're supposed to be a 4-inch. My end links are Pro Comps that I picked up from a 4x4 shop here. Guy there basically told me it was a TJ end link kit, but it would fit an XJ. And I tell you, man, this kit didn't fit for... It took a lot of massaging to get this in here. And I don't know if it's just a junk kit or if it just doesn't belong in here. I've never had a problem with anything from ProComp before. I'm just not happy with it. They don't disconnect easily, and there's a lot of slop in the bushings, so you can really feel that when you drive. I'm not super impressed with them. Those are going to get replaced sometime in the future, I'm sure. The last modification I had to make on the front here was my track bar mounting hole. If you do a lift, you may want to replace your track bar, get an adjustable one. I just didn't want to spend the money on that right now. See, that's the factory hole. This is how much it moved. Just drilled a hole through, got a new grade 8 bolt, grade 8 nut for the back, and make sure you torque the fuck out of this bolt and put some thread lock on it, because if this loosens up, that's where you get your death wobble. One thing you're going to notice after you get everything back together with your lift kit, you're going to go to sit in it and your steering wheel, which was sitting nice and centered, is now going to be cocked off to one way. So that's easy enough to just adjust your drag link adjustment sleeve here. Just give her a few turns until your steering wheel is back centered. Really simple. So since doing this, it handles actually really nicely. These springs are very stiff. Aside from the little clunks I get from those crappy end links, it handles like a big tall sports car. Yeah, so that's about it. Like I said, I didn't want to do a detailed how-to. I started to film one, but then I thought, man, there's so many good videos out there already. I'm just happy to share the few tips and tricks and show you guys my new lift kit. Show it off a little bit. Oh. It lifted it about 5 inches over what it was in the back and about 6 in the front, so it was obviously sagging very bad. Hopefully this quick tour of my lift kit will be somewhat helpful to someone out there considering this lift or doing something like it. It wasn't really a kit I bought, it was just pieced and parted together, stuff that was on sale. And that might be the way to go if you're on a budget like me. If not, go buy a kit that comes with everything. If you got any questions or comments, leave them below. If there's a modification you think I should do to my Jeep, leave it in the comments. If this is your first time here, hit the subscribe button. And check out some of my other videos. Thanks a lot for watching.